Good afternoon. We are continuing with those percentages like we've been working on in our previous objectives. Today we are doing PO23. I can find a percent of a whole number. So now it's time for real life applications for using percentages. So we've been doing the practical, how do we convert from decimal to fraction to percentage. We do this in real life all the time. Perhaps you've been asked some variation of the following questions. She took 20 shots and made 30% of them. How many shots did she make? So we see percentages a lot when it comes to sports. People will kind of use percentages when they talk about stats for sports. Or how about the test was worth 30 points and she got a 90%. How many did she get correct? The bill at the restaurant was about $40 and I left a 15% tip. How much was the tip? So anytime you go out to eat, you're using tips. You go shopping, you have to factor in sales tax. Okay, these are all based on percentages. Whenever we take tests and you want to know how, if you got, okay, let's say I got 27 out of 30 correct, well, what grade is that? So you figure out the percentage. If you know your percentage, you can figure out what the grade is, because we know if it's in the 90%, it's going to be A- to an A+. We know that's the A range, but we need to figure out how to find what the percentage is. Or if somebody tells us the percent, we need to figure out how many did they get right for that percentage. So let's answer the questions above using 3 different methods. So we're going to use fractions, percentages, and multiplication to find these answers. So for our first one, she took 20 shots and made 30% of them. How many shots did she make? We're going to look at using that in fractions. We know she made 30%. So what fraction would that equal?
3/10, 15.
We're going to do it with that 100 on the bottom, just because we want to be in the habit of using those hundreds. So we know 30% equals 30 hundredths. So we could say she made 30 out of 100. We don't know how many out of 20. So we're going to put, she made 20 shots and made 30% of them. So out of 20 shots, she made N. We don't know how many she made. So 20 shots was 100%, right? They equal each other. 20 shots, if she made them all, she would have made 100%. So how many shots she did take, or she did make, equals that 30%. So now we're going to solve for N. So now we're doing that algebra that we did a few objectives ago. If we're dividing by 20, what do we need to do to get N by itself? Tatum? Times it by 20. So we're going to multiply both sides by 20. So those cancel out, so we get N by itself. What's 30 times 20? It's not 60, 600 out of 100, which equals what? Because our zeros cancel out, 6 over 1 is 6. She made 6 shots to get 30%. 6 shots out of 20. Now we stop and think, does that logically make sense? If she made 20 shots, and that was a 30%, 30% is less than half, less than 50%. 20 shots, what's half of 20 shots? 10. So does it make sense that she's going to make a number that's smaller than 10? Because she made less than 50%. So we want our answer to be less than half. So it makes sense that she would make 6 shots out of 20, because 30% is less than half, 6 is less than half of 20. Okay, so there's doing it the algebra way. We're gonna do some more, so if that doesn't quite make sense, it's okay, we're gonna keep working on this. We have doing it with percentages. So, she took 20 shots and made 30% of them. So we're gonna look at that 20 shots, we're gonna look at what 10% of 20 is. Because there were 20 shots. What would 10% of 20 be? In 2. 10% of 20 is 2. Because that's 0.1 times 20 would give us 2. So then we can say, well, she made 30%. So we're going to multiply this by 3 to get us to 30%. What do you think we're going to do to the 2? Multiply it by what? 3. So 30% equals that 6. Same answer. We went about a completely different way of finding it, but we get the same answer. Aiden. No, 30% equals 6, because this was a 2. 10% of 20 is just 2. So if we multiply it by 3, it's 6 shots. Because our question was, how many shots did she make? She made 6 shots. 30% of 20 is 6. Okay, we're going to keep going. So I know the first time we look at it, we go, whoa, wait a minute. So we're going to, when we do it for the next ones, it's going to help sink in a little better. Let's look at our third way, multiplication. So she made 20 shots times that 30%, which is 30 over 100, equals, we just figured it out over here, that 20 times 30 over 100, that gave us that 600 over 100, which equals 6 over 1, which equals 6. Mm-hmm. So we did, she made 20, or out of 20, she made 30%, which was that 30 over 100. So 20 times the 30 over 100. So it's like what we did over here. It's just a little bit easier plugging in the numbers. So those are our 3 different ways. We're going to do it again together for the test question. So a test is worth 30 points, and she got a 90%. How many did she get correct? So what's her percentage? 90% equals what fraction? 90 over 100. Okay, we know how to convert it from the percentage to the fraction. Now we're going to put it in that algebra. So we want to know how many she got right out of that possible 30 points, right? Because the test was worth 30 points. So we want to know how many she got right out of 30. So that equals 90, that fraction of 90 over 100, because 30, if she'd gotten all 30 right, she would have gotten 100% on the test. We don't know how many she got right, but she got a 90% on the test. So if we want to get that n by itself, what do we have to do? Alexis? Yeah, we're going to multiply both sides by 30 because we want to get that n by itself. Tatum, were you saying that does make sense or does not make sense?
It's just like,
Yep, that's why we do it multiple times, because as we're going through it, it's going to start to make sense. So what's 90 times 30? 2,700. So it's 27. 9 times 3 is 27 plus my 2 zeros. That's the way my brain does it. So 9 times 7 was the 27, plus we had 2 zeros to tack on. So 2,700 over 100. What's 2,700 divided by 100, Emmeline? 27. So she got 27 right out of 30. Does that logically make sense? So she had 90%. Yeah, it's going to be close to 30. Because 90% is close to 100%. It's going to be just a little under. So logically, we know it makes sense. So now let's look at how we would figure that out using percentages. It's when we work with our percentages, we want to break it down to that 10%. Then we can multiply it up. So 10% of 30, because there were 30 problems, 10% of 30 equals what? 3. So now we know that we want to get up to 90%. So what are we going to multiply by? If we have 10% and we want to get to 90%, what should we multiply by, Evan? 9. So what we multiplied by on this side, we need to multiply by on that side. 3 times 9 is 27. So we wanted to get to that 90%, so we knew to multiply by 9, so we had to multiply by 9 over here, and we get the same answer of 27. So remember, when we're working with our percentages, we want to break it down to that 10%, so then we can easily multiply up to what we need to. So let's look at our last way, multiplication. So we have, the test was worth 30 points, and she got a 90% out of how many? 100, right? We want that 100%. So she got that, oh my goodness. That was a crazy 9. She got a 90% out of 100. We're going to multiply it by the 30 possible. There were 30 possible points. She got 90% of them right. What's 30 times 90? Is that 2,700 out of 100, which equals 27. Yay! We're going to do it one more time to make sure it clicks for everyone. So I'm going to have you work out the tip on your own. Because some of us are saying, oh my goodness, it's starting to click. So quietly work out the tip on your own. The bill at the restaurant was about $40, and I left a 15% tip. How much was the tip? So I want you to see if you can work it out yourself. And then well, they're all going to be the same answer, right? So try to work them out and see if you get the same answer. Put your answer on your whiteboard to show me when you figured it out. And at home, if you're watching this, try to figure it out on your own at home, and we're going to see how you did. Thinking about how we set up our previous problems. This is a quiet, working it out yourself. Evan, try to do it yourself. Look at how we worked out with the shots and with the test, where we put the percentages, the fractions, how we worked that out. Let me see who just held one up. Yeah, that's okay. Nope, just show me what you got. Oh, okay, let's make our numbers look like what they're supposed to look like. Yes, Jan, that is better. All right, some of us are figuring it out, and some of us are going, I'm not quite sure. So I'm going to go through each step so we can see if we were working it out the correct way. Always thinking, does my answer make sense? The question is, the bill at the restaurant was about $40. I left a 15% tip, so 15% of $40. Does it make sense if our tip is more than 40? Okay, so always look back. Audrey, yes, that is correct. All right, so if we do our percentage way, we know we want 15% of what? 15% equals what fraction? So sorry, we're not doing the percentage way, we're doing the fraction way. So we know it's 15%. What is our fraction for 15%, Evelyn? 1500. Okay, so 1500. So we want to know how much we left out of $40 if that what we're leaving is 15% and $40 is 100%. So we want to find that end. What are we leaving out of $40? So remember, we want that n by itself, so we're gonna multiply by 40. $15 times 40 is 0. 600 out of 100. So zeros cancel out and it equals $6. 15% of $40 is $6. Now, if you had wanted, you could have looked at that 1500s and said, ooh, I can simplify it right now so I have smaller numbers to work with. I can divide by 5, and that would be 3/20. 3/20 times 40, that gives you smaller numbers to work with, but you still have to simplify in the end. So my brain just automatically goes 15 times 40, and I do that math. If you simplified it, and then you did 3 times 40 divided by 20, that works too. And you get the same answer. So if we're going to do it with our percentage way, remember I said we break it down to that 10%, so we can build it up. So 10% of, not equals, 10% of 40 equals 4, because we had $40 altogether and we want to start with those percentages. Then we want, we want to get to 15%. How can I get to 15% from 10%? Oh, who said that? Who said plus? Yes. So instead of multiplying up here to go from 10% to 30% and 20% to 90%, we multiplied. We could add 5%. So if we're going to add 5, that gives us 15. So we want to So we added that 5 to get us to our 15%. So what is 5% of 100? Because then what is 5% of 100? 5% of 100? 5% of 100
Oh, I did that. 100.
Divide by 5, right? That 100 goes down. So what's 1/20th? It's due. So this one doesn't work out as easily as the other two ways. Why do we think we give you multiple ways to work out a problem? Because some ways are going to be easier for a problem than other ways. Was this way an easy way to figure out, oh, I add 5%, so I'm adding to, how am I getting these numbers? If you're not able to work it out easily doing it this way, don't use that way. Sometimes it's super easy to find that answer. Sometimes you look at it and go, but if it was 5% and then I go to add 2, that's a lot of steps in there that I didn't have to do in previous ways. So if it doesn't come up easily, don't use that way. That's why we've got 3 ways. So our last way, we had 15 hundredths, as it was 15% times what? Times our $40. So 15 times 40 gave us that 600 out of the 100, which gives us our $6. So this way and this way were easy for us to use to find that tip. The middle way wasn't quite as easy. Does that make sense? So,
please pardon this interruption. I need all 5th and 6th grade basketball players to please walk to the office to pick up your uniform. If anyone is did not get their uniform last Friday, you may also come to the office. 5th and 6th grade, and anyone else who didn't get a uniform for basketball, boys.
So if you're playing boys season is before the girls season. If any boys are playing basketball, quietly go get your uniform. Okay, find the following values. Show your work. So no gold stars for that mental math. Does it say we have to do it all 3 ways? No, pick one way. It doesn't have to be the same way each time. You do it with fractions, you could do it with percentages, you could do it with multiplication. So 60% of 40. How could I solve that? Show your work on your paper and then write your answer on your whiteboard. Once you realize there's 3 different ways to do it, and you can use any of the ways, use the ways that work for you. Who wants to come up and show us how they solved it? Tatum. With 60% out of 40, 60% is 60 hundredths. So you could just do 60 times 40 divided by 100. So he did 60 times 40, which is 2,400, 2,400, and then that's over 100. It doesn't say we can't use a calculator, but I'm gonna say, right now you're showing your work. So I need you to show all of the steps in your work. And I will have to look at the test to see if we can use a calculator on the test. But you need to show your work. So we're not relying on a calculator on this page. 60 times 40, you should be able to write that out. Okay. So the answer was 24, because doing it the multiplication way, pretty easy. We had 60%, 60 hundredths times our 40. So 60 times 40 divided by 100. You can do the same for each one of those. Multiplication, you just take that percentage as a fraction, times it by your whole number. Find out what that number is. Emily. 35% of 50?
Yeah.
So if we do it the same way, what would my fraction look like, Emily? 35 times 50 over 100. So what's 35 times 50? 1,750 over 100. So now I can simplify it that way, right? I can take out those zeros, so I ended up with 175 over 10. Did you see how I did that? I divided out. I canceled out one of the zeros. Then I'm going to have to go and do my division, because that fraction bar means to divide. How many times can 10 go into 17? Once. 17 minus 10 is 7. I'm going to bring down my 5. How many times can 10 go into 75? 7. So 75 minus 70 is 5. So then I am going to go into my decimals. So, because I can't have a remainder, I'm not going to say 17 remainder 5. We don't want remainders anymore. We're in big kid math. So we're going to make sure we divide it all the way down. So if I put a decimal here, I'm going to put a 0 and bring my 0 down, and that becomes 50. So my decimal goes straight up. 10 goes into 50 5 times. 50 minus 50 gives me that 0. So my answer is 17.5. So you might have decimal in your answer. Yes.
Can't you just simplify it and go 50 times 0.35?
Sure. Because you divided that 35 by 100. 35 divided by 100 is 0.35. 0.35 times 50. Yep. It's doing the same thing. You're using the same math. You're just working your numbers a little differently. Most definitely, you could say 0.35, because that's what 35% is. You could do the decimal and multiply it. Instead of doing the fraction, we know 35%. 35% equals 3,500. 3,500, which equals 0.35. So instead of putting it as that fraction, Gus wants to use the decimal. That works too. Because it's the same thing. It's the same value. Does that make sense? So you could just do 0.35 times 50, and you would get 17.5 for your answer. Let's look at our second page, where our work for today is. The first section says find the following values, show your work. So I want to see which method are you using? Are you using fractions? Are you using percentages? Are you using multiplication? Then we've got some word problems. Oh, those word problems always scare us, but we're doing the same kind of math. The trick with word problems is making sure you're answering the correct question. Don't just say, oh, I'm gonna find the percent of the whole and done. Make sure you're answering the question. And then make note on this one, it says estimate the following values. You can do this by rounding the percent to the nearest 10. So 21%, what percentage would we use, Audrey? 20. 37%, what percentage should we use, Tatum? 52%, what percentage should we use, Audrey? 50. And 62%, what should we use, Tatum? 60. Round it to the nearest 10. Make it easy for yourself. If it says estimate, make it easy. Then we have write a percentage statement that equals the given value. For example, if the given value is 15, you might write 30% of 50. So you want the answer to be this number. So what percentage of what would give you 30? So here, 30% of 50 equals 15. So 0.30 of means times 50 equals 15. So you're going to have to figure out what percentage of what number equals 30. What percentage of what number equals 45? Who thinks they could help us out with the first one? Who can come up with a problem, a percentage statement that would equal 30? So we're not working on our math problems right now. We're actually following along with where I am at. So I really, truly want us down at that bottom one so we can work it out together. Gus?
25% of 120.
Let's see, 25% of 120. So let's see if that works. 25%, we 2500s times 120. Oh my goodness. What is 25 times 120, Gus?
Are we allowed to use calculators on this?
Yeah, some of you were gone, getting your basketball uniforms, and I said, I don't know if on the test we can use the calculator.
I mean 3,000.
3,000. So 25 times 100 is 3,000. It's not that complicated of math that we're doing, so I'm gonna ask for you to work it out because they keep saying, show your work, show your work. So show your work. We cross off our zeros and we end up with 30 is our answer. So Gus helped us with that first one. 25% of 120. How did you know that so quickly, Gus? You just did the math. Like, how did you come up with 25% of 120?
25% is 1/4, so 1/4 of 120 is 30.
So he knew that 25% is a fourth. 2500ths is 1/4. So he thought of what number is 30 1/4 of. So 30 times 4 gave him that 120. It's not going to work for all of those, but it could. You could even think half. What's 45 a half of? So you could say 50% of what would give you 45. Okay, don't overcomplicate it. That looks like you're still a little confused, Alexis. What's 50% of what would give us 45? Half of what number would be 45? Yeah. So you could say 50% of 90 equals 45. That's a percentage statement that equals this. Don't overcomplicate it. Use numbers that you know. Gus knew 1/4, 25% is 1/4. That was something that he knew right away. I know my 50%. I can multiply by 2. Okay, don't overcomplicate it. Emily.
Do you And solve it on your paper, or do you have to solve it? You like go in your head, you can write down.
I would like you to show your work to make, that's your way of knowing that you were correct. Okay, so yeah, you should write it down. So you're checking, that's your way of checking yourself. Did I do it correctly? Any other questions on the math for today? All right, if you are at home, we hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.